There is one thing, a dirty little secret in the corporate world that is probably holding most of you back. And I believe it's holding most of you back because I think the majority of us have the same problem. And that problem is our attitude. The issue is that only certain attitudes benefit a company. Right? Companies want to function the way they want to function. They've got leaders in place. They've got certain ideas, certain ways they want to do things. And that's the way they want to do them. A bad attitude is not going to allow them to execute the plan as effectively or efficiently, right? And it doesn't matter if the plan is intelligent, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about competency. We're not talking about effectiveness. We're just talking about a company wants to do something and you're in the way. So as unfortunate as it is, you can fix this. You can change your attitude. You can think about things differently. You can handle your approach to coworkers and your boss differently. It just feels unnatural. And it's not a popular piece of advice, but you could fake it and fake that positive attitude. But it's going to hold you back if you don't. So if you think about attitudes at work, right, there's a spectrum of attitudes, and we all fall somewhere on that spectrum. So on the far end, you have who I'm going to call Positive Pete. We all know Positive Pete. It's the person at work that seems just unfazed by anything going on, right? You may even spend a lot of your work day trying to figure out, like, how could they possibly be that happy about everything, right? You know, they could make a $3 million mistake and be up to their eyeballs in work, and they are just happy to be alive. On the opposite end of that spectrum, you have Negative Nancy. And we all know Negative Nancy also. That's the person who's never happy, right? Complains about everything. Even when they're killing it and they're doing a great job, they're still not happy, right? Because they shouldn't have had to do that. They shouldn't have had to do this, right? Whatever it is, they're just always negative. And the reality is that in those scenarios, a company is going to look at that differently than us, right? We will look at it and say, hey, Positive Pete doesn't even make sense. Negative Nancy doesn't make sense. You should be somewhere in the middle. But the reality is, for a company, they want Positive Pete's, right? Because at the end of the day, Positive Pete is only a problem for his company when he messes something up. So if he spends all year doing great, and then one day he messes up, he's only been a problem one time. Because all the rest of the time, he's been a good boy. He's done what he's supposed to do. He's followed the rules, right? So he's been great. Negative Nancy, on the other hand, she's always a problem because she's going to push back. She's going to ask questions. She's going to be disgruntled, right? She may even intentionally or unintentionally rile up coworkers to also be frustrated, right? So Negative Nancy's always a problem. So she could go all year, never make a mistake, but she's been a problem all year from the company's perspective. Now, you may have a good relationship with your boss, in which case you can be a Negative Nancy and get away with it a little bit more. But rest assured, if that boss ever leaves, you're on the chopping block. If you rub anyone else the wrong way, you're on the chopping block. That's the difference. That's the way they look at it. Now, the problem for most workers is this. Most of us are either in the middle or more towards Negative Nancy, right? Because work is just inherently not this beautiful, peaceful, fun-loving place that we all love to go, right? Work is usually frustrating. A lot of it is unfulfilling. You're going to have a lot of people that you work with, and just human beings are that way, right? You're not going to always get along with everybody. You're going to end up with leaders that you don't like. You're going to end up with processes that don't make sense. And a lot of policies and procedures are created by people who don't know the day-to-day work that you do. So a lot of times you may have company policies and practices that literally feel like they're against what you're supposed to be doing. And so I think a workplace is inherently frustrating. And I don't mean that in like, we hate our jobs. I just mean, just genuinely speaking, I think they tend to be frustrating, because the more people you add, the more frustrating it'll be. So the problem is that just very few of us are positive Pete's, right? And most of us aren't even on that side of the spectrum. So you may have people who dip over into that side, but then what happens? Work just beats them back to the negative Nancy side. So we have a conundrum. What do we do about it? This is frustrating, and I think it leaves us in a spot where we don't have a good solution, right? Because on one hand, the company wants positive Pete's. Positive Pete's are good. They get in line. They do what they're supposed to. They don't cause a problem. So the company wants that. But then the very nature of the workforce pushes all of us towards negative Nancy's. So we're kind of caught in this system where the system wants something that it inherently does not produce. And so then it's up to us. So the way we go about it is one of two ways, really. There's not a lot we can do, because you either have to just fake it, right? You just have to find ways to be positive. Just, hopefully you can find ways to really be positive. But you either have to fake it, just be overly positive for no reason, or you have to just try to do the best you can. Let your work speak for itself, and just try to be neutral, right? That's what I try to do. I try to not get too amped up at work, right? So if I'm really frustrated, I just try to let it roll off my back and move on. And, I don't try to act overly positive. I don't try to be captain team player who's super excited in all the meetings and getting everybody on board with how cool it's going to be today, right? I don't do that. But I do work hard. I try to do the best that I can on everything that I do. I try to avoid mistakes, and I just try to stay neutral, right? So I think for a lot of you out there, that might be the best that you can do. Not all of us are good at faking it. So if you can't bring yourself, or you just don't feel like it's right to just pretend to be Captain Positivity, then just try to stay neutral, right? Find ways outside of work to find some peace and some meaning and some hope, and then bring that to the workforce. And just when the day starts dragging you down, right, and negative Nancy starts beating on your door, just remember the day's going to end. You're going to get to go back home, right? This weekend you'll go play golf. You're going to teach your kid how to fish, right? You're going to, get a long prayer in and just reset life, right? Whatever it is that brings you joy, right? Just focus on those things. I think sometimes that's the best that we can do. Try to stay neutral. Do a great job. But, if you want to get ahead, you have got to avoid being negative, because these companies do not want it. If you are negative in a company, especially the lower you are on the ladder, the worse negativity is. Because if you're supposed to be a worker bee, worker bees don't stop to ask how things are going, right? You don't got bees visiting the queen all day, like, are you sure? That doesn't really make sense. I don't really like that. Oh, Pete's making me frustrated. Like, they don't do that. And they don't want you to do that. So hang in there. Hopefully, I don't know how encouraging this video could be, to be honest with you. But stay neutral. Work hard. And I think you can probably be just fine. If you can swing towards positivity, whether fake or real, then I think that's going to go well for you. So, but I hope this video helps. Or maybe not. But anyway, if you did like it, like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.